In this episode of Popcorn and Compliance, the MCU, Tom Fox and Megan Dougherty take up Infinity War. Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back again with Megan Dougherty from One Stone Creative for our continuing challenge on the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Yes, we're reviewing the entire MCU. Why? Well, because it's there. And, of course, we are MCU Uber Geeks. We have been reviewing these films in chronological order, and we are nearing the end. In fact, we're at the end, part one, which is Infinity War. So, Megan, welcome.
Thanks, Tom. I'm Megan Dougherty from One Stone Creative. Happy to be here. This has been such a journey, and we really are getting towards the end. There's been laughter, there have been tears, there will be more tears, as I just warned you before we hit record. But what is your take on Infinity War?
Well, of course, we watched both movies in preparation for this and the next podcast we're going to record. And having watched them in chronological order was so great. And it really helps make sense of the whole series. And it allows you to take a really deep dive into the personalities of each one of the heroes. And when these two movies came out, I remember I did one pod, or we did two pods, and I have one friend who used to be the ultimate MCU Uber geek. I think we may have overtaken him. And he really liked Infinity War better than Endgame, and I've really come around to that too. I think, spoiler alert, Endgame is the end, and it was just a lot of action, I thought. And I thought in Infinity War, we got not only some great character development, but we delved into some of the characters in ways we had not done. And that, so for that, I really want to talk about three things. And I want to start with the Hulk. Because I really didn't understand the Hulk in Infinity War until I saw Endgame. Because once again, we'll have to give a little spoiler alert. He loses the ability to transfer between the personalities. And what I didn't understand was how that occurred. Well, now I do. And it occurred because he fought Thanos and lost. And he fought him actually straight up, meaning Thanos did not have the Infinity Stones, or he was not using them when he fought Hulk. And he fought Hulk on the ship of Asgardian refugees that left Asgard after the end of Thor Ragnarok. And a large number of them were killed by Thanos. And I think Hulk somehow really, this got to him. And it got to him, one, because he lost. It got to him, two, because of the incredible massacre of the refugees. And he is not ever the same, or at least he hasn't been the same in the current MCU universe. Perhaps that will change. But the just traumatic impact of this, and maybe it was because his entire Hulk life had been pointing towards this battle for the universe and for the earth, and he lost. And he lost in a way that I don't think many people thought he could have lost, which was a straight-up fight with another being. So it gave a level of the Hulk always had pathos. And sometimes it was less, sometimes more. But this was, to me, kind of the ultimate pathos that Banner couldn't bring him back. And he couldn't bring him back in this film. So that was number one.
Well, I've got to add to that, because I think that was a really interesting Hulk moment as well, especially because after losing to Thanos on the ship, he was sent back to Earth. And it was after that point that Bruce could no longer control him. And I think part of it is also, he was a hero on Sakaar. He had friends on Sakaar. Everyone on Earth hated and was afraid of him, and they only wanted to use him. So I think that tied with the feeling of abject failure. I think that might have contributed to it too, because he was developing so much more personality as the Hulk. Enough to say no when Bruce was trying to call him out back on Earth.
The second was the role of Doctor Strange, and I have
Your favorite.
My favorite, and I'm well known, and I have fully admitted Doctor Strange aficionado. Yes, we're going to see the next one, which we'll of course review on this podcast series, and I saw the evolution of Doctor Strange and really understanding his role in the meta universe, particularly when he did two things. Number one, when he went through the 14,328 potential outcomes of the battle with Thanos, but also when he negotiated with Thanos to turn over the stone. And his requirement was that Tony Stark live. Now, perhaps Thanos knew what was going to happen down the road with Tony Stark, but Strange and Stark were not close personal friends in this movie. Yet, Doctor Strange made that a requirement of voluntarily turning over the stone. Now, this becomes hugely significant in Endgame, and we'll get to that in Endgame. But when we saw it, unless you knew that Doctor Strange knew what he was doing, it was difficult to understand why he did it, except to keep Tony Stark alive, and that perhaps Tony Stark, being one of the smartest humans on Earth, could come up with a plan, which, of course, he does, because he is. So I really enjoyed Doctor Strange and his evolution. And I guess the third thing that struck me was, and I know I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but was the ties back to the MCU. This is 20 movies, 21 movies. We're into this series now.
It's a lot of movies.
A lot of movies, and a lot of culture, a lot of backstory, a lot of legacy, a lot from the comic books, a lot new. And so this is the third time I've gone through this. And, it's now finally beginning to understand it. And being incredibly frustrated in many ways when we started, or when the movies first came out, because it didn't make as much sense, because I didn't have the backstories. It had either been too long since I'd seen the prior movie, or they weren't released in chronological order like we have watched them. So I really enjoyed the understanding the ties back to the full MCU. So what are some of the plot points you enjoyed?
Well, I mean, the first was, Infinity War, to me, it was a good movie. It's hard to watch. And one of the biggest things about it, I think, is what a great villain Thanos is. Because, I mean, he's undoubtedly sociopathically evil. But in a really understandable way. It's really easy to get his motivation. His desire to bring balance and order to the universe and have a grateful universe and have everyone be happy and thriving because there's enough resources. I think it has always begged the question, why can't you just double the resources or make infinite resources or change the world in some positive way rather than, annihilating half of existence. But the fairness of it, rich and old alike, that always really struck me as it made him not a sympathetic villain, but one that it was really easy to get. And just his power and the way he defeats everything and everyone in his path. This was his... In Infinity War, he wins. He beats the Avengers, despite all of the setup looking like, no, the Avengers are going to take it. It's going to be like our normal movie. So it's kind of, this was his big protagonist movie, which I thought was fantastic. And so much of it was grim, right from the beginning with Heimdall dying and Loki supposedly dying. Although, there's a little escape for that given later. But the way they handled characters, these characters that we care about, I guess, as you say, after 20 movies, being so soundly defeated and being so close to success so many times. There were a couple points in the movie we almost won, we almost had him. When on Titan and the Guardians plus Strange and Iron Man and Spider-Man, they almost win until Peter Quill loses it. And then right at the end, Thor could have had him. And just, it was an absolutely roller coaster emotionally for the movie. And I really love that. And of course, in Avengers or Marvel fashion, gosh, it was funny. What a funny, horrifyingly emotional movie.
So, any Easter eggs you particularly enjoyed in this one?
Oh, there were a couple. I loved they let kind of, I feel like every character really, really super be themselves, and be really hilarious. Wong, you're invited to my wedding right at the beginning. I think one of the funniest lines in the entire cinematic universe was, "I'll do you one better. Why is Gamora?" I have not yet seen that a single time without absolutely cackling. Followed by, "I am Groot. I am Steve Rogers." Right at the end. Let's see. Cookies, not so much stuff that I noticed, but the relationships between characters. How great are Rocket and Thor together once they go off on their way to Nidavellir? Maybe his name is escaping me. How is his name escaping me? He was Eitri, the dwarf.
Peter Drinkage.
That's it. Peter Dinklage from Game of Thrones, which I also enjoyed. He was great. Making him giant, I think, was a lot of fun. But Rocket, being the captain, gotta be the captain, gotta be tender, really was, I think, a beautiful relationship. They gave Groot character development over the course of the series, going from being a snarly teenager into saving the day in a really meaningful, self-sacrificing way. So 10 points for that. And of course, that moment when Peter becomes an Avenger on the way to Titan, just the play of emotions as he realizes, this is great, I want to be a big guy. Oh no, this is what that means. So those were some of my favorite points.
So that brings up one of my favorite of all times when he talks about, I'm not sure if it was ancient history, but it was a really old movie called Aliens. And really...
that was really good.
Really old movie. And they use that as a strategy. So that was...
Oh, I love that really old movie joke.
Yeah.
Is Footloose still the greatest movie of all time? No, man.
A couple of others I really enjoyed. We had a bit more Wong in this one, and I really like Wong. But he told the origin story of the Infinity Stones, and he kind of ends in sometimes you get some pretty religious overtones here. Perhaps that's not surprising, but they're fragments of God. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not sure if that's capital G God or little g God. Nevertheless...
maybe MCU God.
Maybe MCU God. That would be a little g God. So... but I really enjoyed that. And then I also enjoyed the Peter Dinklage scenes in Nidavellir. I think that's how you pronounce it. That's the dwarf home. But the thing that struck me there was it was almost blacked out because there was no power. And that was done by Thanos intentionally. But it made for, I thought, just a great scene. And, of course, he has his hands cut off by Thor. And so he can't work. That's why hands cut off by Thanos. That's why he needs Thor to do the work to get the forge going again. So I really enjoyed both of those. And
right after that, the triumphant return to Earth and Wakanda and joining the battle that was ongoing. What a return! With summoning the Bifrost and just it was. Not quite as the scene where he jumps onto the pile of baddies on the Rainbow Bridge in Asgard, but it was real good.
It was pretty good. So that was a great battle scene, too. It was great to see all the Wakandans there. Of course, Bucky coming out of hibernation was also great. The attempts to remove the stone from Vision, but due to the advanced technology of Wakanda, I thought was another great interplay. It was almost as funny as, yet another injured white boy. We have to put back
what
together.
What did she say when they arrived? Can you help us? Well, why didn't you just program them to work collectively? Well, we didn't think of it. Smarty pants.
That was great.
So good.
That was great. So all of that was very cool. The Wakandan warriors were great. So much fun. And then when we got to the end of this movie, and really the hand-to-hand combat was very exciting, but I found that highly emotional. Mm-hmm. And his battle with Cap, his battle with Wanda, Bruce Banner's battle, because he's not the Hulk right now. They were all, it was clear everybody was going all out, and somebody was not going to win, and somebody who was not going to win was not going to be the good guys. I found that very touching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and well, I mean, the final end and Wanda and Vision's sacrifice, it's a little bit hard to watch, especially when it's just so immediately undone. And that wasting of the sacrifice is really brutal.
Right. That I think sets us up for our final episode. I am Tom Fox, and I hope you will join us for our next episode.
I'm Megan Dougherty, and that next episode will be one of the most epic movie or series finales in history, Endgame.
I hope you'll join Megan and I next week when we conclude the MCU Phase 2 with Endgame.